Hi everyone. The 19th century saw the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, and with that, it changed shipping forever. No longer were ships built entirely of wood and operated just through sails. Now they became built out of iron and steel and were powered by steam engines. With new technologies came new ideas, and with new ideas came experiments, and ideas of thinking outside the box, of people wondering, does a ship really need to be elongated to float? Does a ship really need to be powered by just a paddle wheel or a propeller? Could maybe a land wheel, like a carriage, do the same job? Do ships have to have one full hull? Why can't they be connected so they can ride the waves? Or, why must passengers get seasick? Why can't you have a saloon that stays level while the rest of the ship rolls with the waves instead? These were some of the ideas that were put forward during this fascinating time period, and it led to some very interesting ships. Most books nowadays tend to just set them aside as curiosities, but the book that we're going to be looking at today, which is John Guthrie's Bizarre Ships of the 19th Century, takes a slightly more analytical and serious look at these ships. This book looks at various examples of the bizarre ships and ship designs that came out in the 19th century. Some of them are fairly well known, such as the early submarines, the monitors, and some were partially successful, such as the whaleback steamers and the Mississippi paddle steamers. But then he goes on and has a look at some other truly exotic designs. The Great Eastern, which is probably one of the more famous eccentric creations of the 19th century, that six-masted, five-funneled, paddle and propeller-powered iron leviathan. The lesser-known vessels that are covered here include the Connector, a vessel that was hinged, as you can see on the photo up here. The idea is that a ship didn't have to be a single hull, but rather it could be a series of individual containers that, when docked, not only does the ship ride the waves better, but once docked, each container could be unhinged and the cargo unloaded. While the hinged ship never took off, the idea of containerization is basically the backbone of all cargo operations to this day. Another fascinating one is Bazin's roller ship. Again, you can see the photo up here. The photos that you see up here are the images that are included in this book. Bazin's roller ship went across the idea that, well, if we can use wheels on land, why couldn't we use wheels on water? After all, the principle is similar to paddle wheels. Unfortunately, hydrodynamics operate quite differently, and this ship was a failure, and one of the more unsuccessful designs. Another fascinating one that is brought up is the Bessemer, which, again, this is quite a famous image. Bessemer thought to himself, well, why do people have to get seasick? Why couldn't we create an interior that stays level and comfortable for passengers, while at the same time the rest of the ship goes through the motions of the waves? This particular example, unfortunately, never took off. The hinging technology just wasn't quite there. But the idea was valid, and in the 1950s we had the introduction of stabilizers, which enabled ships to run at a far more comfortable pace. And they are now included in all cruise ships so that passengers get a little bit less seasick should a ship be going through a storm. Alright. Two other ones that I do want to bring out are what we would now refer to as catamarans. In this book they're referred to as twin-hulled vessels, and John Guthrie focuses on two ferries running across the English Channel, the Castalia and the Calais Douvres. I apologize for my pronunciation. And what sets this book apart from all those that simply leave these ships as side notes is that not only does he discuss these technically, but he also includes wonderful series of technical drawings, which in this case are cross-sections and diagrams of the interior of the ship, so that you can see how they were laid out and how the engineers of the time tried to approach these problems. Now, these two twin-hulled vessels were less than successful, but the idea of catamaran hulled vessels is common today, and you can see it with many sailing yachts, not to mention all across the Pacific Ocean. We've got everyone's other favorite eccentric ship of the 19th century, the round vessels of Admiral Popov. And this diagram here is of the imperial yacht Livadia. John Guthrie doesn't stop there. He even talks about the obelisk ship, which was basically a floating container to keep the Egyptian obelisk from Alexandria over to London, where it is now on display near the River Thames. But what I find as well amazing about this book is that he also includes a small chapter about bizarre engines, including one which sounds quite familiar today, the hydraulic jet engine. In 1866, the HMS Waterwitch, which was a British gunboat, was launched with this experimental engine system, which is basically jets of water rotating a motor and pushing the ship forward. Here you can see a basic diagram of what it looks like. There are some crazy, wonderful, amazing vessels, and it's fun to read and understand how these ideas were approached with the technology of the time. And as I've said, some of these have morphed and found their ways into our world today. This book is the most detailed you will find. Most other articles online and in print just do a brief overview of these vessels. This one goes a little deeper, and as I said, the big standout for this one is that it includes photographs, illustrations, and especially diagrams, cutaways, and plans of the various ships. For the amount of detail, for the seriousness that it treats its subject matter, and for the sheer joy of just discovering new and bizarre and amazing vessels. I mean, here you go, here's the back cover showing some of the key ships that we just talked about now. For all of this, this is a solid 4 captain's hats. Do hunt this book down, check it out. You won't regret learning about some of these amazing and truly bizarre ship designs. And until next time, enjoy and happy reading, everyone.